Live from London, this is BBC News. Authorities in eastern Libya say 2,000 people have been killed and 5,000 may be missing after a powerful storm led to flooding. Kim Jong-un arrives in Russia's Far East in an armoured train as he prepares for talks with Vladimir Putin. A major study suggests female surgeons working in NHS hospitals in the UK are subjected to a culture of sexual harassment and abuse by male colleagues. And anger grows in Morocco over the speed of the response to Friday's earthquake as heavy lifting equipment begins to arrive in the hardest hit areas of the Atlas Mountains. Hello, I'm Gareth Barlow. You're watching BBC News. We start in Libya, where floods are reported to have killed 2,000 people after a powerful storm swept through the east of the country. Widespread flooding and mudslides caused by torrential rain destroyed many roads and homes. Thousands of people are still missing. The eastern cities of Benghazi, Derna and Al-Marj are among the worst hit. Much of the country has been declared a disaster zone and 3 days of mourning have begun. Let's cross live now to Abdelkader Assad, a Libyan journalist who's based in Turkey. Thank you so much for joining us here on BBC News. Just bring us up to date with what the latest is in Libya. Fascinating and important times in Israel, Yolanel, for the moment. Thank you. Around the world and across the UK, this is BBC News.
Download the BBC News app now and get the latest headlines as they happen. Personalise your app to learn more about the stories you care about. Stay up to date. Download the BBC News app.
You're live with BBC News. Hello, I'm Gareth Barlow. There's been criticism in Morocco of the speed of the official response to Friday's earthquake, which is now known to have killed more than 2,800 people. Heavy lifting equipment has begun to arrive in the remote regions of the Atlas Mountains, which have been the hardest hit. Nick Beak joined the first aid convoys to reach some of the most remote villages in the Taridand region.
Scenes that people are having to witness, knowing that
Tom will have to leave it there, I'm afraid.
We are earlier action. Some lives could have been saved.
You're watching BBC News. Tom Bateman.
Now on BBC News, the latest business news from across the globe. World Business Report.
Live from London, this is BBC News. North Korea's Kim Jong-un has entered Russian territory for a rare visit as the Eastern Economic Forum gets underway in Vladivostok. In the UK, wage growth catches up with inflation for the first time in over a year. And we look at the rapid growth of pickleball and the money pouring into this paddleboard sport. Hello, I'm Sally Bundock. We're looking now at the top business stories and more on the arrival of North Korea's leader in Russia. Kim Jong-un travelled by armoured train in a rare international excursion, and he will be meeting with President Putin, this is according to the Kremlin, in the Russian city of Vladivostok after the conclusion of the Eastern Economic Forum that is hosted by Russia in the same location. The EEF is an opportunity for Russia to strengthen economic and political ties with allies from the East. Over 7,000 participators are expected to be there, including delegations from India, China, Mongolia, Myanmar and members of other ASEAN countries. It's understood that Mr. Kim and President Putin hope to thrash out a deal for North Korea to supply weaponry to Russia for its war with Ukraine. Philip Warman is Senior Managing Director at the risk consulting firm JS Held. He told me about the significance of this year's Economic Forum. REC even. Let's get you some of the day's other news in business. Tesla's stock has rallied more than 10% over the latest developments of its so-called Dojo supercomputer to train artificial intelligence models for self-driving cars. Morgan Stanley upgraded the electric car maker's prospects, saying the Dojo could boost the company's market value by nearly $600 billion. The head of Spotify has denied claims that users can repeatedly listen to their own uploaded 30-second track to rake in monthly royalties. Finance analysts at JP Morgan had said Spotify subscribers could make $1,200 a month in royalties by listening to their song on repeat 24 hours a day. But Daniel Ek, the streaming giant's chief executive, said simply that is not how a royalties streaming works. The Italian city of Venice is expected to trial a €5 daily fee for visitors in a bid to control tourism. All visitors over the age of 14 will have to pay the charge and book their entry to the city in advance. The trial would run during peak tourist periods next year. Now to the US and what's being billed as a blockbuster tech trial. The search giant Google is due in court today, facing accusations of antitrust violations by the US government. Now, this is all about how Google pays its partners to promote its search engine on their products. So, for example, paying companies such as Apple to have Google as the default search engine on a device. That's not in itself a problem unless, of course, as alleged by the Department of Justice, it is anti-competitive and exclusionary. Google disagrees. Well, Emma Wright is a lawyer. She's with the firm Harbottle and Lewis. I asked her what she thought about this case and the implications for Google should it lose. The devil's in the detail on these things. Emma Wright there. Around the world and across the UK, this is BBC News. You're live with BBC News. Let's continue with the business coverage and now take you to India as its top crude oil supplier Saudi Arabia has agreed to expand economic and security ties. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman held a bilateral meeting in New Delhi at the closure of the G20 summit. Current talks assume significance in India's growing global ambitions as a key South Asia economic power. Here's Archana Shukla in Delhi. Now let's quickly look at financial markets before I wrap up the programme. In Asia, we saw a bit of a mixed session. As you can see, Hong Kong lower. The property stocks pulling down Hong Kong again and mainland China yet again. That despite the fact that the news came through that Country Garden has won creditor support for now. There's always concern about what's ahead. The pound has dropped a bit actually versus the US dollar following the latest news on wages and jobless figures out in the UK. You can see that's the end of trade on Wall Street. Everyone looking ahead to US inflation numbers out tomorrow. I'll see you very soon. Thanks for watching.
Live from London, this is BBC News. Authorities in eastern Libya say at least 2,000 people have been killed and 5,000 may be missing after a powerful storm that led to catastrophic flooding. An armoured train carrying the North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has entered Russia ahead of talks with President Putin. After months of protests against the controversial judicial overhaul, an historic showdown is taking place at Israel's Supreme Court. And there's criticism in Morocco of the speed of the official response to Friday's earthquake, which is now known to have killed more than 2,800 people. Hello, I'm Gareth Barlow. You're watching BBC News. We start in Libya, where floods are reported to have killed 2,000 people after a powerful storm swept through the east of the country. The figures come from the leader of the East Libyan government, which is not recognised internationally. Widespread flooding and mudslides caused by torrential rain destroyed many roads and homes. Thousands of people are still missing. The eastern cities of Benghazi, Derna and Marj are among the worst hit, but much of the country has been declared a disaster zone and 3 days of mourning have begun. Abdelkader Assad from the Libyan Observer gave us the latest on the disaster. Tom Bateman in Marrakesh. Around the world and across the UK, this is BBC News. 24 stores in the Wilko chain will close for good at the end of the day's trading. They're the first in a wave of closures over the next few weeks after a rescue deal collapsed. Stores, including those in Liverpool, Cardiff, Acton and Falmouth, are among the branches to shut, with a further 28 closing on Thursday. An 11-year-old girl who was attacked by a dog in Birmingham has backed calls for American Bully XL dogs to be banned. Anna Pound was treated in hospital for wounds to her arm. 2 men who intervened were also treated in hospital after being bitten by the dog. Crumbling concrete that's led to the closure of buildings at more than 100 schools has also been found in Parliament. RAC, or RAAC, was found in one part of the Palace of Westminster, but a spokesperson for the palace said that it poses no immediate risks to the building. The concrete was found during a routine ongoing investigation of the parliamentary estate just by the side of the River Thames. You're live with BBC News. Hello, I'm Gareth Barlow. Let's take you to Israel next, where an historic showdown is taking place. All 15 judges of the Supreme Court are convening for the first time ever to hear petitions against a legal amendment which limits the court's ability to scrutinise government decisions. This is a live shot of the court. You can see the judges there gathering and deliberating. On the eve of this pivotal court case, thousands of people took part in a protest in Jerusalem, saying that government reforms would erode human rights in Israel. Our correspondent, Yola Nell, gave us the latest developments. You can read the story for yourself on our website, bbc.com/news, or on the BBC News app. Now, just time to leave you with the pictures of surfing dogs. It's from an annual dog surfathon in California. The event is in its 18th year and raises funds for a rescue centre in Santa Fe. More than 50 dogs took part. I went surfing a couple of days ago, and it's upsetting to see that I've been outsurfed by our four-legged friends. Do stay with us. You're watching BBC News. I'm Gareth Barlow.
Hello. The hot weather that's been affecting many western parts of Europe lately